Hello everybody and welcome back to the Fantasy Football Fix YouTube channel. My name is FPL Phillips and this is another episode of Eddie versus the Algorithm, the series here on FPL YouTube where we're putting the Algorithm free hit team calculated by the Fantasy Football Fix computer up against my own personal free hits for each game week of the season. And it's a very close contest heading into the final few game weeks of the season. You definitely don't want to miss out, so make sure to subscribe if you are just joining the series now. But to those regular viewers returning, thank you for your support. It is now going to be a very, very close run-in towards the end of the season with these last couple of game weeks. And game week 32 is going to be one of particular importance and one where the Algorithm team is perhaps the most significant, given that a lot of you probably watching this video will be playing the free hit chip this week. So I'm sure you'll be interested to see how the Algorithm team is lining up. Before we get into that though, we just need to have a little bit of a quick recap as to how we got on in game week 31 and what the score currently now sits at, with the Algorithm scoring a pretty respectable 74 points in game week 31. Erling Haaland coming through with the captain's armband alongside returns from Mohamed Salah and Martin Odegaard, both scoring double-digit hauls in midfield, meant that the Algorithm scored a pretty decent total, you would have to say, despite maybe not too many returns in the back line. Raya still managing to get 5 points despite not keeping a clean sheet, thanks to some save points and some bonus points coming through. Other than that, not too many returns. Grealish came through with one more attacking return, but 74 points was still enough to get the better over me, and I scored 68 points in game week 31, so wasn't the best showing from me really. There were some picks in here like going for Elise over Eze that were really tight calls and ended up not paying off in my favour. We had to rely on some defenders from the bench as well, with Ake and Zinchenko both missing out in game week 31. We knew nothing about the Zinchenko injury, and you know, Ake was just a result of Pep doing a Pep and dropping a player who he said has been undroppable in the last week or so. So yeah, we still had Mohamed Salah, we still had Grealish in the side, we still had Erling Haaland captain, but it was the same as the Algorithm in that regard, and we didn't have enough to get one over the computer, meaning that, as you can see at the bottom of your screen, the deficit is reduced to 1. It is now 14-13 to myself over the Algorithm, and game week 32 could be the week where the Algorithm does draw level. Speaking of which, let's get into game week 32 and have a look at how the computer team is going to be lining up. And here's how the Algorithm team is lining up then. Let's get into things. 67 predicted points with this 3-4-3 formation. And in goal for the Algorithm this week, it is going to be Neto, who I think is quite an interesting goalkeeper selection. Now, a lot of people on FPL Twitter are going with the same keeper or a small set of keepers, and Neto is not one of these goalkeepers, so why has the Algorithm decided to go with him? Well, West Ham's attacking data hasn't looked great as of late, and they are away from home in this one, with Bournemouth being the home side. But despite that, when we do take into account home fixtures, whether you're home or away, we look at Bournemouth's defensive data, they are still the second worst performing defence in the league when it comes to expected goals conceded, even when they're at home. So I don't think that Neto is perhaps the one I will be going for. The underlying data and the clean sheet odds don't suggest that Bournemouth defence is perhaps the best way to go. But he could be a very, very interesting differential, and when we're on the free hit, and we know the Premier League, anything can happen, Bournemouth can produce great results, we can take these kind of little punts and go for those on a free hit. And Neto could be a decent opportunity to do that when we're seeing a goalkeeper who's in the majority of free hit drafts and everyone's gonna own. I know that FPL Twitter and a small subsection of that who have one certain keeper aren't going to represent the entire manager base of all the managers in FPL, but I still think that Neto could provide a really nice differential if you fancy taking a little bit more of a risk in your side. Moving to the defence then, we've got a back three that does look rather template, you'd have to say, at least with two of the picks, I should say, with Robertson and Trent being in quite a lot of teams at the moment. And I think the main debate isn't going to be whether to have Trent in your free hit team. I think with this new role he's playing, he's back in his most attacking self. He got 2 assists in Liverpool's last outing. I think it's going to be whether to have Robertson as your third Liverpool asset or whether to have another Liverpool attacking option. And it's interesting to see that the Algorithm has decided to go with the former, adding in Robertson as what I presume is the third Liverpool asset alongside Mohamed Salah, who will be in midfield. So that's interesting to see, with Nottingham Forest at home being the fixture for Liverpool. They have still been shipping goals. Forest have still been scoring goals. So Robertson, when he's not in the attacking returns as much as he has been in the past, perhaps hasn't got the most upside when you compare him to the likes of Gakpo and Jota, who you could potentially pick up. One problem with that is that Liverpool have pretty much everyone fit at the moment in the final third now. Luis Diaz is back. Darwin Núñez was benched in the last game. So you can't guarantee that Gakpo and Jota are certainly going to start in that one. But I say you could put good money on it. We'll probably get some decent half predictions before the game. Maybe even some league lineups if we can see that in advance for the Liverpool sides. So, yeah, I know Robertson isn't got the most upside potential. If he does get an attacker return and a clean sheet, he'll have a mega haul. But I think you could look elsewhere for a Liverpool attacker and be with a really good shout of getting a decent points haul. We've then got Mitchell as the final defensive option. It is interesting to see a Crystal Palace defender does make the way in here, as the goalkeeper I was alluding to is Sam Johnston in goal for Palace. They have some pretty decent clean sheet odds expectedly against Everton, who have struggled lately under Sean Dyche. In midfield then, we'll move in to have a look at the midfield four, and Mohamed Salah is unsurprisingly in there taking the captain's armband alongside two Arsenal mids in Saka and Martinelli, which is to be expected. We've then got Elise as well as the final midfield option, and I really like the look of this midfield four. I think Saka's data looks really good at home. Hopefully that penalty miss won't affect him too much, and he'll be back to his usual high-performing self at the Emirates. Interesting to see Elise over Eze, despite the fact that Eze has been the better pick, you'd say, over the last 2 weeks. He's got that harder goal-scoring threat when you compare him to Elise, who, although Elise does have those free kicks, he's got other set pieces. I think that Eze's goal-scoring ability and the fact that, you're getting 5 points for a midfielder goal compared to an assist, which Elise is more prone to in 3 points, means that Eze perhaps does have the more upside and haul potential. If he grabs a brace like he did in the last game, he's almost certain to additionally get those 3 bonus points. So yeah, Elise does look interesting. I think he's got the more reliable underlying data. As mentioned, Eze's kind of been overperforming his XG and XA at the moment. So yeah, I would say that Elise does look the better underlying data, but Eze, in my opinion, just seems a little bit more explosive in FPL at the moment. And then finally, we're going to round things up with a front line of Ivan Toney, Watkins, and Gabriel Jesus. And you kind of have to have Watkins in at the moment, most informed striker in the league, you'd have to say, up there with Erling Haaland at the moment. Gabriel Jesus as well is a good option if you don't want to go for an Arsenal defender. Having him in your side looks really, really strong up front. And then finally, Ivan Toney is perhaps the most surprising one, going up against an Aston Villa side who are in really good form right now. At home for Brentford is where they are at their best, and Ivan Toney, on his day, can be one of the best forwards in the league. So it's interesting to see the algorithm's gone with him over some of the popular forward options at the moment. And then finally, on the bench, we're going to see Andreas, Trippier, and then also Mark Guehi. So a really nice looking bench from the algorithm side here. I don't think there'll be any need for any of these players, to be honest, unless we get some unexpected injury news. But this is how the algorithm team is looking, so you can take a screenshot now or whatever if you want to keep hold of that. Moving into my team then and how it differs from the algorithms, we can see that in goal for me is going to be Sam Johnston. I've gone with him as the Crystal Palace defensive option of choice, just to allow me to go with a little bit more of an attacking defensive option inside the back three. And I've gone with Alex Moreno, who I kind of have been bigging up for the last couple of weeks, and he is starting to come through. In my own personal team, I decided to go for Ake instead of him when I was weighing the two of them up 2 game weeks ago, and that's gone horrendously now that I think that Ake could be out with a hamstring injury from the Champions League as well. But Alex Moreno is doing me proud anyway, even if he's not actually in my team. He's been fantastic. Going forward, he's the one creating a lot of the chances that Ollie Watkins has been tucking away or, nearly getting into the back of the net. So I can only see that continuing. He's nailed down that left-back spot at Villa, which was the only thing keeping me from getting him, really was the threat of Luca Dean, but I can't see that being a thing anymore. So I've gone with him in the back line. I know Brentford's a tough fixture, especially away from home, but I just think in that kind of form, him and Watkins, where they can go up against any side pretty much in the Premier League at the moment, and you kind of have to back them. In midfield, I've gone for the exact same midfield, but I have switched out Elise to Eze. I do think from the eye test, he looks like one of those players, almost like a Matoma in a way, who can actually outscore their expected data on a regular basis. He looks in fine form at the moment under Roy Hodgson, and I can see that continuing. Having said that, of course, it could end up being Elise's day, and I've made the wrong choice 2 weeks in a row, so I can't say for certainty that Eze's a better pick than Elise, of course. And then finally, up front, I've gone with Dom Solanke over going with Ivan Toney. I think Solanke's in really good form at the moment, and the West Ham game is a kinder fixture than the Aston Villa game that Ivan Toney's got. The bench is looking very similar. It was hard to drop Kieran Trippier and the likes of Harry Kane as well. I think that with the free hit, you do have to look for upside, and I know Trippier and Kane are highly owned, so if you're looking just to protect your rank, then having those guys in your team is probably the safer bet, but it's a little bit more exciting if we go with something like this, isn't it? Let's be honest at the end of the day. So yeah, 14-13 to me in favour of myself at the moment over the algorithm team. Let me know what you think the score is going to be at the end of the game week by letting me know down below in the comments. Who do you think is going to come out on top? Myself or the algorithm team? Leave a comment down below, Team Eddie or Team Algorithm, and let me know any questions you've got regarding any of the free hit teams, of course, or anything you've got going on in your own personal teams that you would maybe like a hand with. Thank you very much for tuning in, everyone, and I wish you all the best of luck for Game Week 32. I will see you all in the next one. Goodbye.